Okay, so let me just start by saying, if you've been watching from season 4 and you felt something shift, something darker and more unsettling than anything the show has done before, you're not imagining it. Because what's happening with the man in yellow and this Sophia disguise is not just a cool plot twist. It's a complete evolution of what this show is. And honestly, it changes everything. Think about what From has always been at its core. You've got this town that traps people. You've got monsters that come out at night. You've got locked doors and talismans, and this slow, agonizing drip of mythology that never quite lets you relax. And for 3 seasons, the horror lived mostly in the physical, the creatures, the violence, the helplessness of not being able to escape. But season 4 is pulling the terror inward. It's not just about surviving the night anymore. It's about surviving each other. And the man in yellow, this entity, this force, whatever he actually is, he's figured that out too. That's what makes the Sophia disguise so genuinely disturbing. Because he didn't come back as a monster. He came back as a child. And when you think about that choice, a child, you start to realize how deeply this entity understands human psychology. A child disarms you. A child, especially one with religious undertones and an almost ethereal calm, makes you want to trust, protect, and believe. Sophia walks into the township, and she doesn't scream. She doesn't threaten. She doesn't even feel immediately wrong. She feels like something that needs saving. And in a place like From, where everyone is already exhausted and terrified and desperately holding on to whatever hope they can find, something that feels innocent is practically irresistible. That's the weapon. That's the whole point. What makes this even more interesting is how differently every character responds to her. And this is where the man in yellow proves he's not just intelligent. He's adaptive. He doesn't play the same card with everyone. With some characters, Sophia is gentle and curious, almost childlike in a way that pulls at their protective instincts. With others, she's more cryptic, saying things that feel like she knows too much, dropping fragments of information that shouldn't be possible for a lost child to know. It's like watching someone run a long con in real time, reading the room constantly, recalibrating based on what each person needs to hear. And that's terrifying in a way the nighttime creatures never quite were. Because the creatures outside, you know they're the enemy. You lock the doors and you wait. But Sophia is inside. Sophia is already at the table, already sleeping under the same roof, already weaving herself into relationships that the township desperately needed to keep stable. The breach isn't at the door anymore. It's already happened. Now, there's a question that fans have been going back and forth on, and I want to sit with it for a minute because it matters more than it might seem at first. Was Sophia ever a real person, or was she created entirely as a vessel? Because those two possibilities lead to very different interpretations of what the man in yellow actually is and what he's capable of. If Sophia was a real child once, if there's a history there, a name, a family, a backstory buried somewhere in the mythology, then the entity didn't just create a disguise. He consumed someone. He built something out of grief and loss and innocence. And that's a kind of horror that hits on a completely different level. But if Sophia was always constructed, always fictional, always a tool, then what we're dealing with is an entity that understands human vulnerability so completely that he can manufacture the exact face designed to break through every defense. Both possibilities are deeply unsettling, and Season 4 is clearly in no rush to answer that. Which, honestly, good. The ambiguity is doing real work here. This is where things start to get darker when you think about what Julia Doyle is actually doing with this role. Because the easy version of this performance would have been to play Sophia as creepy cute. The classic horror child archetype, the glassy eyes, the too still movements, the whispered threats. And Doyle went somewhere completely different. What she's doing is grounding Sophia in a kind of unsettling realism. The discomfort doesn't come from Sophia feeling inhuman. It comes from her feeling almost human, almost right, like something that has studied what children are like from a distance and is performing it just slightly off-key, just enough that you feel it before you can name it. That uncanny quality, that gap between what seems safe and what your instincts are screaming at you, is something that takes real craft to achieve. And it's making Sophia one of the most genuinely disturbing characters this show has ever put on screen. What I keep coming back to is the question of awareness. Does the man in yellow know about the cycles? Does he remember previous iterations of the trap? Previous groups of people who came through and either survived or didn't? Because if he does, if this entity has accumulated knowledge across every cycle, every failure, every time someone came close to breaking free, then Sophia isn't just a new tactic. She's a refined one. She's the result of watching human beings fail to escape over and over again and learning exactly which emotional pressure points cause people to collapse from the inside rather than from the outside. That reframes the entire history of From. Every monster, every manipulation, every moment of false hope, it might all be part of a process that's been running longer than anyone in the Township could possibly comprehend. And what Season 4 is doing with trust is brutal, because trust is the only real resource the Township has. Information is scarce, escape is impossible, safety is temporary. But if people can trust each other, if they can coordinate and protect and believe in one another, they have a fighting chance. Sophia is a direct attack on that. Every interaction she has, every relationship she builds or damages, every moment of doubt she plants, it's all chipping away at the one thing the Township needs most. And the show is doing something really smart by not making this fast or obvious. It's not a dramatic betrayal scene. It's a slow erosion. A question here, a reaction that doesn't quite fit there, a moment where someone trusted Sophia and something went subtly wrong. And by the time characters start to piece it together, the damage is already deep. There are a few characters I'm watching incredibly closely right now, because I think their confrontations with Sophia, if and when they come, could be the moments that genuinely shift the direction of Season 4. Characters who carry guilt, who have lost people, who are already emotionally fractured. Those are the ones the entity is going to go after hardest. Because Sophia doesn't need physical force. She needs an opening, and grief and guilt and desperation are all wide open doors. I also think we're building toward a moment where someone either fully sees through the disguise or gets dangerously close and pulls back at the last second, and the tension of that scene is going to be something else entirely. Because the show has been laying groundwork all season, letting us as viewers sit with the dread of knowing what Sophia is while watching the characters slowly, painfully not know. That gap between what the audience sees and what the characters understand is one of the most powerful tools in horror storytelling, and From is wielding it with real confidence this season. What's also worth saying is that the Man in Yellow's return in this form feels like a statement from the writers about where the show is going thematically. The earlier seasons established the physical rules of this place, the creatures, the boundaries, the mythology. Season 4 feels like it's moving into the psychological architecture. The question is no longer just can they escape? It's will they still be themselves by the time they find a way out? Will the trap change them so completely? Will the manipulation run so deep that even freedom, if it comes at an unbearable cost? That's a darker question than anything From has asked before. And the Man in Yellow, wearing Sophia's face, walking through the Township with that almost right smile, is the embodiment of that question. He's not just a threat to their survival. He's a threat to who they are. And honestly, that's why this season feels different. That's why this feels like a show finally playing its most dangerous card. Because what happens in the dark, as terrible as it is, you can close your eyes and survive until morning. But what's already inside, what's already sitting at the table, there's no talisman for that. Season 4 is just getting started. And I genuinely don't think we're ready for where this is going.